Three battleground states holding primaries today, all of which are indicative of what's coming up here in the rest of the electoral months ahead of us. We know, that, for instance, that voters in Indiana, North Carolina, and Ohio are heading to the polls to select nominees for the 2010 midterm elections. Doug Heye joins me now. He's a communications director for the Republican National Committee. What I'm stumbling about and grasping for here is that there's a movement underfoot, Doug, that has to do with incumbents. Which races are you looking at to predict what might happen come November with booting incumbents from office?
Well, you know, we're not going to see a lot of that in these three states that you mentioned. It certainly appears. In Indiana, Evan Bayh is retiring. You mentioned North Carolina. That's my home state. Senator Richard Burr is in a very good position because, as you mentioned earlier, people are going to the polls today. But in North Carolina, Democrats really aren't going to the polls. I'll give you one example. Davidson County, which is the barbecue capital of the world, not far from my home, is the home county of Cal Cunningham. He's the DSCC appointed candidate. As of Friday, only 53 Democrats voted in early voting. That's an appallingly low number that demonstrates that you don't even have any organization or excitement in your home county. It sends a really bad signal for what your chances might be in November.
Hey, let me switch gears a little bit and ask you, even though it's on primary day, this story about the oil slick is massive, and it is influencing the discussions we have about energy policy. We had Governor Rick Perry suggesting that maybe this oil slick was an act of God. So he said, let's not pull back against drilling because this could be God's work. I mean, how does this influence the way politicians should talk about how to meet our energy needs?
Well, I know Governor Perry also said that we shouldn't rush to judgment on that in the Dallas Morning News.
But an act of God? I mean, Doug, come on, an act of God?
Well, I think he's talking about how that's used in legislation and contractual law. But he said we shouldn't rush to judgment, which is important. I know David Vitter, who's up for re-election in Louisiana, is paying very close attention to that. Fortunately, he's up about 18 points in the latest poll and is well positioned. But for members in those key states where this is where it could wash ashore, it's of critical importance. How it affects our energy and gasoline costs is something that's going to be really important. If this has a bad impact on our economy, it will be very damaging for President Obama because he's not been able to demonstrate any kind of job growth in the past year.
Vitter said this morning on Morning Joy that he still supports drilling, but we do know that in some of those coastal states, Virginia, Florida, their leaders are saying they might take a step back and look at offshore drilling again. Doug Heye, good to see you today. Thanks.
Always. Thank you.
Times Square.